The desperate call. The mining vessel. Luminous drift hung motionless in the darkness between star systems, its elegant crystalline hull flickering with the last remnants of power. Inside the command center, Captain Vexara pressed her delicate tendrils against the emergency beacon controls, knowing this decision would either save her crew or doom them all. The Cytherians were a peaceful species from the gentle world of Sylvana, where the gravity was so light that their translucent bodies could float on air currents. They had evolved in a paradise of floating gardens and bioluminescent forests, never knowing predators or violence. Their greatest achievement was their ability to harvest rare minerals from asteroid fields using harmonic resonance technology that gently separated elements without force or heat. Vexara's iridescent skin pulsed with waves of orange anxiety as she reviewed their situation. 3 solar cycles ago, their quantum drive had suffered a cascade failure when they encountered an unexpected dark matter pocket. The explosion had damaged their life support systems, leaving them with perhaps 10 cycles of breathable atmosphere. Their food synthesizers were offline, and the temperature inside the ship was dropping steadily toward the freezing point that would crystallize their water-based bodies. "Captain," spoke Talmir, the navigation officer, his voice a melodious whisper that barely disturbed the air. "The beacon is configured to broadcast on the Etherian Alliance frequency. Our brothers from the Mist Worlds should receive it within 2 cycles. The Etherians were their closest allies, beings of pure energy who existed in gaseous nebulae and understood the Cytherians' peaceful nature. They had traded knowledge and culture for centuries, never once raising a weapon or harsh word against each other. If the Etherians received their distress call, they would come with their cloud ships and gentle extraction methods." "Send the signal," Vexara commanded, though the effort of speaking loudly enough to be heard was exhausting in her weakened state. "Include our coordinates and the nature of our emergency. Tell them we have 43 souls aboard, including 7 younglings." The beacon launched into space, a desperate cry for help that spread outward at the speed of light. What the Cytherians didn't know was that their emergency frequency, corrupted by the dark matter interference, had shifted to a much older bandwidth. This ancient frequency was one that most advanced civilizations had abandoned millennia ago, considering it too primitive for modern use. But there was one species that still monitored these old channels out of habit and paranoia. They came from a world that had taught them to never ignore any signal, no matter how unlikely. They came from Earth. 3 light hours away, the human patrol vessel Thunder's Edge prowled through the shipping lanes like a metal predator. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her scarred hands gripping a cup of coffee that would have been toxic to most galactic species. Around her, the human crew went about their duties with the casual efficiency of apex predators who had nothing to fear in the darkness. "Commander, we're picking up something weird," announced Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the communication station. His dark fingers danced across the haptic controls with a speed that would have terrified most aliens. "It's a distress beacon, but it's using a frequency we haven't seen in our databases." Chen moved to his station with the controlled violence that humans called walking. To most galactic species, the way humans moved was terrifying. They didn't flow or float or undulate. They struck the ground with each step, their bodies constantly fighting against their world's crushing gravity, turning every movement into an act of controlled aggression. "Play it," she ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had survived 15 combat deployments in the outer reaches. The bridge filled with a sound like singing crystal, beautiful and haunting. The mathematical patterns embedded in the signal were clear. These were coordinates, a plea for help, and basic information about the beings in distress. The computer began parsing the data, revealing that 43 lives hung in the balance. "How far?" Chen asked, already knowing they would respond. "It was the human way. When someone called for help, you answered, regardless of the danger or the distance." 6 hours at maximum burn," replied the navigator, Lieutenant Jim Park. "But Commander, we'd be pushing into uncharted space. We don't know what's out there." Chen smiled, an expression that her crew found reassuring but would have sent most aliens fleeing in terror. The baring of teeth was a threat display in nearly every species except humans, who had somehow turned it into a sign of friendship. "Since when has that stopped us?" Helm Set course for those coordinates. Engineering, I want everything you can. Give me from those engines. Medical, prep the trauma bay for potential alien casualties. She paused, then added, and someone wake up Dr. Petrov. Tell him he might finally get to use that xenobiology degree. The Thunder's Edge turned toward the distress signal and engaged its fusion drives. The acceleration would have crushed most galactic species into paste, but the humans barely noticed the 5 gravities of force pressing them into their seats. They had evolved on a world where the gravity was so intense that their bones were like stone and their muscles like steel cables. Back on the luminous drift, Vexara floated in the command center, conserving her strength. The younglings had been moved to the center of the ship where the temperature was warmest, but even there, ice crystals were beginning to form on the walls. She had just closed her eyes to enter a meditative trance when Talmir's frightened trill jolted her awake. Captain, something is coming, the gravitational wake. It's massive, the speed, nothing should be able to move that fast. Vexara pulled herself to the sensor station and felt her chromophores flash white with terror. The approaching vessel was 3 times the mass of their ship but moving at velocities that should have torn any craft apart. The design was primitive and brutal. All angles and armor, weapons pods, and sensor arrays. It looked like something built for war, for violence, for death. By the gentle currents, she whispered. We've attracted predators. The human ship dropped out of its acceleration burn just kilometers from the luminous drift, a maneuver so violent that the gravitational waves made the Cytherian vessel shudder. To the humans, it was a standard parking procedure. To the Cytherians, it looked like an attack approach. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earthship Thunder's Edge. We received your distress signal and are here to help. Please, respond. The words came through the translator, but the voice behind them was harsh and clipped, lacking the musical tones that civilized species used. It sounded like rocks grinding together, like predators growling, like death approaching. Vexara trembled as she activated the communication system. Every instinct in her evolutionary history screamed at her to flee, to hide, to play dead. But her crew was dying, and these terrifying beings were their only hope. This is Captain Vexara of the Cytherian vessel Luminous Drift. We are in great need. Our life support fails. Our younglings grow cold. We meant to call our allies the Etherians, but you have come instead. Her translator struggled with her next words, but she forced them out. We fear you, beings of the death world, but we are desperate. Will you truly help us? On the human bridge, Chen frowned at the translation. Death world? She looked around at her crew, all of whom seemed equally puzzled. Earth was just Earth. Sure, it had some dangerous wildlife and the occasional storm, but it was home. Captain Vexara, I understand you're frightened, but I promise you, we're here to help. We're going to send over a rescue team with emergency supplies and engineers to help repair your systems. We have a universal docking collar that should be able to connect with your ship. Will you permit us to board? The very thought of these creatures entering their ship sent waves of terror through every Cytherian on the bridge. They had heard legends of Deathworlders, beings from planets so hostile that evolution had turned them into walking weapons. They were said to breathe poison, drink acid, and heal from wounds that would kill any civilized being instantly. But Vexara looked at her crew, saw the younglings shivering in the cold, and made her choice. We permit it. Please be gentle with us. We are fragile beings and our younglings are frightened. Chen turned to her crew. You heard them. They're scared of us, so everyone needs to move slowly and carefully. Martinez, Webb, Park, you're with me. Grab emergency supplies, oxygen generators, and portable heaters. Dr. Petrov, you're coming too, but keep your medical kit sealed unless absolutely necessary. We don't want to terrify them with our surgical tools. 20 minutes later, the human rescue team stood in the airlock as their ship's docking collar sealed against the alien vessel. The air that flooded in from the Cytherian ship was thin and cold, barely enough to sustain human life, but they had trained for worse. When nightmares become saviors, the airlock door opened with a whisper, revealing a corridor that looked like the inside of a soap bubble. The walls were translucent and curved, with no sharp angles anywhere. Bioluminescent panels provided a soft blue light that flickered weakly. To the humans, it looked magical. To the Cytherians watching through the security feeds, the humans looked like monsters entering a fairy tale. Commander Chen moved first, her magnetic boots clicking softly against the crystalline floor. Behind her, the rest of the team followed, each carrying supplies that would have been impossible for a Cytherian to lift. They moved through the corridors slowly, trying not to damage the delicate architecture with their dense bodies. Captain Vexara, Chen spoke into her communicator. We're inside. Which way to your command center? Follow the blue lights, came the trembling response. Please don't break anything. Our ship is alive, and it feels pain. The humans exchanged glances through their helmets. A living ship? Dr. Petrov's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity, but he kept his excitement contained. They had a job to do first. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with their first Cytherians. 3 crew members floated near the wall, their translucent bodies pulsing with rapid flashes of color that the humans' translators interpreted as pure terror. They were beautiful in an ethereal way, like jellyfish crossed with butterflies with delicate tendrils that sparkled with bioluminescent patterns. Chen slowly raised her hand in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Hello. We're here to help. I'm Commander Sarah Chen. One of the Cytherians, barely half Chen's height and looking like it weighed perhaps 20 pounds, managed to pulse out a response. You are so dense. Your footsteps shake our world. How do you live? How do you move? The gravity of your presence pulls at us. Martinez, the engineer, carefully knelt down and began unpacking the portable heater. We come from a heavy world, he said gently, his voice soft despite its natural roughness. But that means we're strong enough to help you. This device will warm your ship. Is it safe to activate it here? The Cytherians flickered in what seemed to be amazement as Martinez lifted the 100-pound heater with one hand and set it down gently. To him, it was like placing a basket on the ground. To them, it was like watching someone casually juggle boulders. They reached the command center where Captain Vexara waited with her senior staff. The Cytherian captain was slightly larger than the others. Her translucent body shot through with veins of gold light that marked her as a leader. But even she trembled as the humans entered her bridge. Captain, Chen said, removing her helmet to show her face. I'm Commander Chen. We're going to help you, I promise. Where are the younglings you mentioned? They're our priority. Vexara's chromophores shifted to patterns of surprise. These predators cared about the young first? It went against everything she had heard about Deathworlders. They are in the core chamber where it is warmest, but the temperature even there is dropping below their survival threshold. Webb, Park, take the emergency supplies to the younglings. Set up heaters and make sure they're stable, Chen ordered. Then turning back to Vexara, Captain, what happened to your ship? As Vexara explained about the dark matter pocket and the cascade failure, Dr. Petrov scanned the Cytherians with his medical sensors, careful to keep the device's appearance non-threatening. The readings were fascinating. Silicon-based biology with a crystalline matrix that stored energy like living batteries. Their operating temperature range was incredibly narrow, and their bodies would shatter if exposed to anything the humans would consider normal pressure. Commander, Petrov said quietly, their biology is even more delicate than we thought. The gravity from our ship's mass is actually causing them discomfort. We need to be extremely careful. Martinez had moved to what looked like their engineering console, though it resembled more of an art installation than any control system he knew. Captain Vexara, may I examine your drive system? I might be able to help repair it. You would do this? Vexara's patterns shifted to what the translator suggested was hope mixed with confusion. But we have nothing to offer you. We are not your species. We are not even from your sector of space. Why would you risk yourselves for us? Chen smiled softly, careful not to show too many teeth. Because you called for help and we heard you. That's what humans do. We help. The next several hours were a delicate dance of repair and rescue. Martinez worked with the Cytherian engineers, his thick fingers somehow managing to manipulate their delicate controls without destroying them. The human team set up heating units throughout the ship, bringing the temperature back to livable ranges. Webb and Park had found the younglings, 7 small Cytherians no bigger than human hands, and had surrounded them with portable heaters and emergency blankets. Dr. Petrov synthesized a nutrient solution that the Cytherians could digest using their food synthesizer patterns as a guide. It was crude by their standards but life-saving given the circumstances. Everything was progressing well when Talamir suddenly cried out in alarm. "Captain, ship's approaching. 3 vessels on an intercept." "Course." Chen was at the sensor station in 2 strides. "Can you identify them?" The display showed 3 ships that looked like mechanical spiders, all sharp angles and weapon pods. Even to human eyes they looked menacing. "Crathan pirates," Vexara whispered, her entire body going pale. "They prey on disabled vessels. They will take our minerals and leave us to die. We have no weapons, no defenses." Chen's expression hardened into something that made even her own crew step back. "Captain Vexara, do you request our protection?" "You would fight for us?" The Cytherian could barely comprehend it. "But there are 3 of them." Chen activated her communicator. "Thunder's Edge, this is Chen. We have 3 hostile vessels approaching. Prep for combat. Weapons hot but do not fire unless fired upon." On the Cytherian bridge, the aliens watched in horrified fascination as the humans transformed. The helpful, gentle giants who had been so careful with their ship suddenly moved, with predatory precision. Chen barked orders that sounded like controlled violence, coordinating with her ship in preparation for battle. The Crathan pirates arrived like they owned the sector, their lead ship broadcasting a demand for surrender. "Cytherian vessel, you will transfer all rare minerals to us immediately, or we will breach your hull and take them anyway." Chen grabbed the communication console. "Crathan vessels, this is Commander Chen of the Earth ship Thunder's Edge. The luminous drift is under our protection. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences." There was a pause, then harsh laughter. "1 human ship against 3 Crathan raiders? You Deathworlders may be fearsome, but you're not invincible. Stand aside or be destroyed." Chen's smile was all teeth now. "Your funeral." The first Crathan ship fired a plasma bolt at the Thunder's Edge. To the Cytherians, it looked like the wrath of a star. To the humans, it was Tuesday. The Thunder's Edge's point defense system swatted the plasma bolt aside like an annoying insect. Then the human ship returned fire with railguns that accelerated tungsten slugs to a significant fraction of light speed. The first Crathan ship's shields flared and died, and the slug punched through their hull like it was made of paper. The second and third Crathan ships opened fire simultaneously, filling space with energy beams and missiles. The Thunder's Edge rolled and twisted with an agility that shouldn't have been possible for something its size, its point defense lasers creating a web of light that destroyed incoming projectiles. "Martinez," Chen called, still coordinating the battle from the Cytherian bridge. "Can you get their engines online?" "Give me 5 minutes," the engineer shouted back, his hands now working with desperate speed. The Thunder's Edge launched a spread of torpedoes that forced the Crathan ships to scatter. 1 torpedo found its mark and the second raider vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. The third ship, seeing its companions destroyed, tried to flee. "Oh no you don't," Chen growled. She activated her communicator. "Thunder's Edge, disable their engines. I don't want them coming back with friends." A precision railgun shot tore through the fleeing ship's engine compartment, leaving it drifting helplessly. "Crathan vessel," Chen broadcast. "You have 2 options. Surrender and be towed to the nearest Federation station for trial, or we leave you here to think about your life choices while your life support slowly fails. You have 30 seconds to decide." The surrender came in 15. On the Cytherian bridge, there was absolute silence. They had just watched 3 ships that would have easily destroyed them be swatted aside like insects by the humans. The Deathworlders had lived up to their legends, but not in the way anyone expected. "You saved us," Vexara finally managed, her chromophores cycling through patterns of awe and gratitude. "You fought for us, bled for us, risked your lives for strangers who gave you nothing but fear. Chen turned to the Cytherian captain, and her expression softened back to something almost gentle. Captain, I need you to understand something about humans. Yes, we come from what you call a death world. Earth has gravity that would crush you, storms that can level cities, and predators that hunt in packs. But do you know what that taught? Us? Vexara could only pulse a negative. It taught us that the only way to survive is together. It taught us that when someone calls for help, you answer, because next time it might be you calling. It taught us that strength isn't about being the biggest predator. It's about being strong enough to protect those who can't protect themselves. Martinez called out from the engineering station. Engines are online. It's not pretty, but it'll get you to the nearest friendly port. Dr. Petrov approached Vexara with a data pad. Captain, I've uploaded medical files about your species' biology to our databases. With your permission, we'd like to share this with Earth's medical community. If we encounter your people again, we'll be better prepared to help. The Cytherians were overwhelmed. These Deathworlders, these living nightmares from a hell planet, were showing more compassion than some of their own allies ever had. Commander Chen, Vexara said, her voice stronger now, we misjudged you. We let fear blind us to what you truly are. You are not Deathworlders. You are life-bringers. You come from a world that tried to kill you, and instead of becoming killers, you became protectors. Over the next few hours, the humans helped the Cytherians complete repairs and ensure their ship was fully functional. They transferred supplies, shared star charts, and even taught them some basic defensive maneuvers. Webb had become something of a hero to the younglings, who had discovered that his terrifying human strength made him excellent at games that involved tossing them gently through the air, something that delighted them to no end. As the time came for the humans to leave, Vexara made an unexpected request. Commander, would you accept a gift? Chen looked puzzled. Captain, you don't owe us anything. Not payment, Vexara clarified. A gift. Our people have a tradition. When someone saves a life, we give them a life crystal. It's grown from our own bodies, a piece of us that will always remember the debt. She extended a tendril holding a small crystal that glowed with the same golden light as her body. This is attuned to our emergency frequency. If you ever need help, if you ever call out in the darkness, the Cytherians will answer, as you answered, for us. Chen accepted the crystal with the solemnity the moment deserved. Thank you, Captain. I hope we meet again under better circumstances. As the Thunder's Edge departed, the crew of the Luminous Drift watched their saviors disappear into the void. The younglings pressed against the viewing ports, their colors bright with excitement as they waved goodbye to their new heroes. Captain, Talmir said quietly, should we report this to the Etherian Alliance? That Deathworlders, humans, are not what the legends say? Vexara's patterns shifted to what her crew recognized as determination. We will do more than that. We will tell everyone. The galaxy fears the wrong thing. They fear the human's strength, their resilience, their ability to survive anything. But what they should know is that humans use that strength to protect. They use that resilience to endure not just for themselves, but for others. They survive so that others might live. She turned to her crew. The humans have a saying that their translator shared with me. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. They come from a world of fire and death, and it made them into something the galaxy has never seen before. Predators with compassion, warriors with mercy, Deathworlders who bring life. The Luminous Drift engaged its repaired engines and headed for home, carrying with it a story that would spread through the gentle worlds and change everything. The Deathworlders were real, the crew would say, but they were nothing like the legends claimed. They were so much more.